Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We are excited to be joined by Riley Hughes, who's the CEO and co-founder of Trinsic. How are you, Riley?
Great.
How is your summer going?
It is an unusual summer. Most other summers of my life, I've been able to travel a little bit and spend more time outdoors. And I think the combination of running a startup and the pandemic has resulted in, a little different summer than I'm used to, but it's been good so far.
Well, at least you're young. You can take a lot of abuse and punishment. It's better than doing it now than when you get older.
Yep.
All right, well, cool. Let's just jump right into it and let the folks know what is Trinsic.
Yeah, so at Trinsic, we're trying to solve the problem that that we can't really prove anything about ourselves on the internet. It's really easy for me, for example, in person to prove that my legal name is Riley Hughes, or that I'm, over 18 years old, or that I'm, authorized to be driving, or all sorts of different things. I can prove them really easily in person because I've got a little leather pouch in my pocket with some plastic cards that are really useful. But there's no analogous online. There's no way for me to prove that my legal name is Riley. There's no way for me to prove my age, or that I graduated from a certain university, or that I'm an employee of a certain company, or anything. There's no standard way to prove any of those things. And so, that's really what we're trying to solve. So you can think of it a little bit like, an Apple Pay for identity cards rather than payment cards. We have a digital wallet where you can get digital cards, and we call them credentials, from any number of institutions that are willing to issue those cards to you. And then our business is we provide the tools to issue and verify these cards to businesses. So, from the business perspective, we're sort of the easiest and cheapest way to onboard and verify your users' identities. But really, the vision is much bigger than just identity. It's really, internet scale, digital trust, which, like I mentioned, it's, the fact that I graduated from a certain university isn't, typically thought of as my identity. But essentially introducing a trust layer to the internet is what we're trying to do.
Cool. So can you give us like a real world example of how you'd like your product to be applied for just Joe Public?
Yeah, it's a really timely example right now, actually. So like I mentioned, so we're a verifiable credential platform. So we just enable you to issue these containers, digital containers with verifiable information inside these digital containers, and hold them. And, we use words like wallet and certificate and things like that to create a mental model for people to understand, sort of the identity use case effectively, right? But these credentials can be used for any number of use cases. And so we were busy, doing things in the, for digital identity for a while. And when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden we noticed that our platform was being used all over for building health certificates for COVID-19. When you get tested for COVID-19, there's a few ways that you can get the results. You can get a phone call, right? And by the way, voicemail is not HIPAA compliant, so it has to be a live phone call. And if you miss the call, you got to call back, and you got to go back and forth. A live phone call, which is not scalable. It's costly for doctors. You can get a fax, which I think was invented in the 1840s at some point. And so, fax machines are sort of antiquated technology. Email is not HIPAA compliant, generally speaking. So you can't get emailed your results, or you can get it in paper form, meaning you can leave the house. Potentially sick people can be leaving the house and entering doctor's offices and physically interacting with people to get paper certificates. And there's probably some various other ways. There's various digital forms and things like that. But verifiable credentials, or our platform, is now being used by places all around the U.S. to and actually in other parts of the world as well. The UK is another one. Singapore is another one, to issue essentially test results in a digital form. And the unique thing about our platform is that when you have this digital form, or this digital certificate of your test results, you can share it with anybody with what we call selective disclosures, meaning, I can share certain things about it without sharing everything, right? I could share that my birth date is, or that I'm over 21 without sharing my birth date, all right? And you can share sort of your COVID status without necessarily sharing your address or something like that, right? And this is being used in various places to help people get back to work. After they've been, they test their employees once a week and make sure that their employees can come back to work on Monday safely, and that type of thing. And so that's probably the biggest real world use case right now.
Okay. So that probably wasn't in your mind when you were thinking through the first steps of this. So where did the idea come from?
Well, what we're doing is much bigger. Verifiable credentials and internet scale sort of digital trust is much bigger than just what we're doing at Trinsic. The verifiable, I've used the word verifiable credentials a couple of times, and I should explain what that is. It is a technology standard pioneered by the World Wide Web Consortium, which, if you're not familiar with the W3C, they are the body that standardized the HTTP protocol that makes it so that your browser can work with, web servers. They standardized the SMTP protocol that makes it so that my Gmail can send an email to your Outlook, right? All the protocols that make the internet work are really standardized by a few bodies, the largest of which is the World Wide Web Consortium. And the W3C just standardized what's called verifiable credentials. And it's exactly what I'm talking about. It's these digital certificates that are natively, part of the internet and are interoperable across different implementations. And what we do, so me and my other two co-founders were involved in this industry for the last few years, and we saw an opportunity as the standard was being developed, and right as it was being finalized, we saw an opportunity to provide a developer platform to essentially create the easiest way for developers to integrate this new standard, right? So you can imagine the OAuth standard. It was an identity standard. Could be used as an analogous to what we're doing. OAuth is the thing that makes it so that you can do login with Facebook, login with Google, login with blank, right? That protocol, you can really log in with anything if somebody wants to develop the login with functionality, and they do it using this OAuth standard. And that standard was developed, and there was a big developer company built on that standard called Auth0. In fact, they just raised, I think, $120 million at a $2 billion valuation, just by helping developers integrate that standard. And they do other things too. They do username, password, they do other things, but that's really one of the core drivers of their growth, and that's the opportunity we saw, is to be the best developer platform for implementing this new standard.
Okay.
So the idea, the core idea kind of has been around. The standard's been in development. There's kind of, there's a lot more people than just us. IBM, Cisco, Workday, Microsoft, all sorts of big companies that are working on the standard. And we saw an opportunity to take the angle for developers and make their lives easier when they're trying to implement these standards.
Okay, cool. So you guys have various products, correct?
Yeah.
So who are they for? The products that you've created so far?
Like I said, our primary product is a SaaS service for developers. It's a developer tool. We have 3 APIs. We have SDKs for each API in multiple languages, and documentation and all sorts of things to try to make the developer experience as good as possible. So our primary product is really the suite of developer tools. We also have a digital wallet, which is an iOS and an Android app that end users can use to hold credentials in their wallet. And then as a part of that developer platform, we have tools for developers to be able to build their own wallet as well.
Okay. So it could be a freelance developer. It could be a developer at a big company that doesn't like their current tool set or products.
Yeah, that's the thing is, we built this product for developers really. And, we did start out with mostly individual developers, small startups, people building apps, that type of thing. And as we iterated and grew, it turns out enterprises have developers too, and that, developers are not cheap resources, right? And so when you can make developers happy and you can, improve their time to developing a solution, then, it pays off. One of our big clients, which unfortunately, they're one of the big four audit firms. We have NDAs and stuff, but anyway, they're one of the big four kind of audit firms. And they did a sort of analysis of all the options of implementing these credentials. And they have a team of 10 developers, and they thought it was going to take their team of 10 developers 4 months to build out this thing that they were wanting to build out using the sort of next best alternative. And their estimate was that it would take them 4 weeks to build it with us. And then it turns out it only took them between 2 and 3 weeks. It was a little faster than they expected, but it saved them money that way. And then, of course, the service saves them money on an ongoing basis. But yeah, so really the developer angle has been a good angle for us, not just from an individual or freelance perspective, but also for enterprises and larger scale startups.
Okay, got it. So if there's a developer at one of those companies and they like what you guys are offering, they'll ask their team lead or HR to give them a credit card and pay for your service. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a free offering that's I think pretty generous to get started and testing and get developing. But yeah, I mean, we're structured such that once you move from kind of a development and testing phase into you want more features or things like that, you can upgrade to one of the paid plans.
Gotcha. So when you're at a family barbecue and your uncle says, "What are you doing?" How do you dumb it down to the simplest form where you can be in and out before the hot dog's finished?
Yeah. Usually I just say, in fact, the other day this happened and I didn't know, but it was my wife's cousin and he was actually an engineer. And so I did the dumbed down version, and then then I ended up being able to give him the other one. But the dumbed down version that I use typically is it's like Apple Pay, but for identity instead of for credit cards, right? It's a standard wallet that can accept any kind of credential, including identity credentials, health certificates, licenses, reports, any loyalty cards, anything like that. It's a standard wallet, digital app that can contain any of those things, similar to what Apple Pay does, but not for payments. It's for everything else.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so you mentioned you've got a few co-founders. How are you guys? One kind of divvying up responsibilities, and how are you guys growing your team?
Yeah, so I think we're really fortunate to have a founding team that's quite balanced. I am not an engineer. I'm technical enough to know the protocols and how it's architected, and I can speak the language pretty well because I spend most of my time speaking with developers. But I'm not an engineer. My background is in investing and in business development, and so I'm on the business side. I'm the CEO. My CTO is an enterprise architect. He's been writing cloud applications for 20 plus years. And then our third co-founder has done multiple startups before. I think this is his third or fourth one. And he's our chief product officer, and he's really got a keen kind of sense on product and is really passionate about that. And so we each we all overlap because we're all interested in everything else, but and so we can all speak the language really well. But we also all have our focuses and trust each other a lot, and so it creates this really healthy kind of way for us to kind of execute quickly because we have that trust and we can all speak each other's languages and kind of operate on the same wavelength, and so enables us to kind of divvy up tasks, architecture and like technical stuff to my CTO, me to kind of business strategy, and my other co-founder to product.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And in terms of growing our team, we're doing it as best as we can. We're hiring, so right, writing up job descriptions and doing what we can to find good people.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's nice when things overlap like that, and you don't have to hire before it's needed for that next piece. So have you guys raised money, bootstrapped? How have you guys grown to this point?
Yeah, so we'd been bootstrapping for about 9 months. We won a sort of a pitch competition at a conference. Not something we usually do, but anyway, ended up going and winning that pitch contest. And part of the award was that we won a pilot with the city of Los Angeles, which is something that we're doing right now. Uh, and so through the kind of sharing on social media of that win, we ended up getting connected with Kickstart Seed Fund, who reached out and was interested in talking more. And it turns out they already knew about verifiable credentials. They've known about the space, and they've been watching digital identity because it's so clearly such a big problem with breaches like Equifax releasing the social security numbers of half of American adults. And I mean, there's so many problems surrounding digital identity that is one of the spaces that they, as smart investors, were kind of watching, and so reached out, and we've been having conversations, and here and there, keeping in touch. And then once once coronavirus was really hitting, and we saw this, we saw a few things coming together. One of which was the need for to start doing more HIPAA compliant stuff, and being able to modify our platform so that it could be used for COVID certificates, and the needs that would come with scaling for that. We ended up raising a small round from Kickstart and a few other investors who participated in that round, and that was closed in April.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you guys were busy, like worrying about COVID, worrying about how it impacts your business, and then also raising money into, for some people it's a headwind, some people it's a tailwind, but it sounds like you guys were pretty quick and turned it into a positive.
Yeah, it's nice being small enough as a startup that we can be flexible like that. It's also nice that I think we just got lucky that digital trust is more important now than it ever has been, with everybody being remote, and with more people in need of resources, and that sort of breeds financial crime in some cases, and so yeah, I mean, digital trust is more important now than ever. So in some ways, COVID has been a kind of positive impact on our business, from just strictly how busy we all are with inbound leads, and with growth of our platform and that type of thing. And it's also had some negative impacts, right? Like certain enterprise contracts that were in the middle of being negotiated were paused, and I think that's happened with everybody. So I wouldn't say it's wholesale been a positive thing, but it hasn't wholesale been a negative thing either.
Gotcha. So this is a kind of a new role for you, CEO, and leading a growing startup. Be honest, what's the best part, and then what's the worst part? Because there's got to be a bad part to pretty much anything in life.
Yeah. So I really, I mean, I don't know if this is going to sound like cheesy or something, but I really think the best part is when I'm talking with somebody and they tell me, oh, this is just what I needed. Like just earlier today, I was talking with somebody who was trying to use some of the open source protocols to implement something with verifiable credentials because they didn't know we existed. And they had spent, I think, 2 months just hacking away at this stuff. And then they found our APIs and were able to get something up and running in less than a week. And we're just like, thrilled at how useful our product had been for them. And I don't know, something about, that validation of, we built something that really helps somebody else is really, really cool. I get a little high off of it every time that I have one of those conversations. So that's definitely the best part in my mind. That, and also the other best part is hiring people and then having them do things like autonomously and just get things done, and then come and tell me what's been done. And it's really cool to be like, wow, I guess I spent so much time with my other two co-founders just before we really had hired anybody else. We just were, everything that happened because of one of us co-founders. And then now that we have a little smaller team, a little small team with about 10 people, things happen without a direct input of the founders, and that's a really cool thing to see this organization growing and things happening. So that's the other awesome part. The worst part, it's kind of been a shift in my mindset. I used to, when I was a poor college student, I would dream about having money so that I could go do things, right? I would think, oh, if I just had, some money, we could go on a vacation, or I could, buy a Tesla, or whatever it is. Used to imagine if I had money then, and now that it's totally changed to if I had time then, right?
Yeah.
I thought I was busy in college, and I was, but man, startup is really all consuming, and I'm probably I'm looking forward to when I can get a little more balance back in my life. I slowly been getting more balance, right? Bringing more people onto the team to help out with certain aspects, but yeah, so just not having the worst part has been feeling like the walk that I go on with my wife every day is like just the best. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is incredible. Like I'm like taking a break right now, right? And thinking about what it would be like when I can take a nice vacation has been kind of one of the hard things.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for the honest answer. And kind of hitting on that a little bit. So you're obviously very busy. What tools or tricks do you use, whether it's exercise or technical tools like Slack or standing meetings, walking meetings? What are some of the things you use or do in your life to maintain a semblance of sanity?
Well, first thing I'll say is I'm probably not the best example of this right now. Uh, I, I just work a lot. And one of the things, I think about all the different aspects of the business, right? And there's a lot to happen. And so, I do work a lot. But the thing that keeps me sane, or the things that if I don't do cause me to go insane, are really every day I go on a walk with my wife, and I carry my, our daughter. She's about 9 months old right now, and I, carry her in her little carrier on my chest and play fetch with my dog at the park. And usually, take an hour, and then I step into the Provo River and just walk around in the water a little bit, just kind of exist for a little while outside of business, and spend that time is really invaluable. And then I take, my faith is important to me, and I take Sundays to pause and to just have that day be kind of a day that's my boundary, right? That's what I keep as my time, and able to spend time with, family and friends and myself on Sunday as well, which really keeps me sane. And other than those two things, it's life is pretty hectic with the startup, and I look forward to scaling that down just a little bit. But for now, that's how it is.
Absolutely. All right. So what are your guys' plans? Knowing, we've had 4 or 5 months of COVID, and there's still a lot of questions as to how things will play out. But what are your guys', option 1 and option 2 for the next 6 to 12 months?
You mean in light of COVID?
Yeah, as far as like growing the business and next products, next iterations. Are you going to put the pedal to the metal? Are you going to be cautious? What are you guys thinking?
Yeah. So I would say we're probably somewhere in the middle of pedal to the metal and coasting. We're definitely still growing, and we're definitely still hiring. We've just hired a few people last month, and still growing in that direction. We're not if COVID didn't exist, we might feel really confident that we could, easily raise a seed round in, the next little bit and just kind of grow a little faster. So I'd say we're probably in the middle, but we're definitely still growing. We're in a good position. I feel like, just because a lot of other businesses are not growing, it gives us a good opportunity, especially in our space. There's other kind of players in our space that have not been able to grow, or have had to kind of scale back a little bit in light of COVID, and we've been able to grow, which has been a positive thing. So we'll continue that. We're constantly kind of releasing new products We've got some good stuff in the works. We just had a big, huge release of another API that's been really well received last month, and then I think that by the end of the summer we'll have another pretty cool release. And then yeah, I mean, and then just like I said, we are hiring, and so there's a few roles that we are looking to fill, and so that'll be kind of one of the next big things that we are thinking about.
Yeah. Cool. So if people want to work with you, where do they go to find out?
Yeah, you could go to work.trinsic.id. Or email careers@trinsic.id.
Cool. All right. Well, this has been enlightening and fun to talk to you. It sounds like a big old bite to take off, and congrats for having the gumption and courage to do it. I'd for sure be that uncle that was trying to grill you on the easiest definition of what you guys are building. And it's good that you can give a simple version for us simpletons and a complex one for the developers. So very cool. We look forward to hearing about more successes and watching you guys grow. So appreciate your time.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.